here, if I can even do that disclaimer. And thank you to Burak Shinolu. I think that's from Turkey. And I think Shaheen means falcon. So thank you, my falcon friend from Turkey, for being here and the shout out. Let's get into the ugly news first. Unlocks are pretty bad as usual. And I've noticed a trend. A lot of layer 2s on Ethereum are unlocking like mad as well. So let the dumpage continue. Usual names again. Athena, always a 2% every week. Aptos, 1.33%. Move, 2%. Mutable X, up there as well. Stark, 4%. Say, 1%. And Arbitrum, 2%. Again, every week now. 2 layer 2s shedding tokens. The bad news. Let's get in. First of all, U.S. national debt is heading for 38 trillion per. Guess what? Polymarket believes there's an 81% chance it's going to happen. Debt is just going through the roof, everybody. That's why we enjoy our hard assets, ladies and gentlemen. So make sure, don't be holding fiat. And this is other proof from Sylvain why you should not hold fiat. Okay? And remember, gold is bad. Gold is real bad. When you compare gold to the S&P 500, it's terrible. Okay? But you compare gold to fiat, it looks like a hero. So since 1971, all right, that's 55 years, the US dollar has lost 98.94% of its value against gold. Yikes. Same period, the British pound sterling, shout out to the Brits out there, 99.42, which shows you the pound has done worse than the dollar, okay? Euro, if it existed, 98.76%. And the Japanese yen and the Swiss franc have fallen 97.47% and 94.85% respectively. So, when I say the cleanest shirt in the laundry is the dollar, not over the past 55 years. Swiss franc is the cleanest shirt in the laundry. If anybody here is from Switzerland, say hi. Let us know you are around. So let me see if I can still navigate the slides. And let's get into the good news. Woohoo! I like the good news. Fear and greed. We are back at, I think it was 54, which is kind of like a cool zone. That little yellow Bob Marley flag. I call this the Bob Marley chart. I love it. Who likes Bob Marley? Let me know. But we're in the yellow zone, so things are not as hot as you would have imagined, even with the price of Bitcoin being 106,000. So that's not too bad at all. We're making it happen. Let's go crypto. The last 7 days versus Bitcoin. This is part of the interesting story today. We're noticing that, guess what? Alts beat Bitcoin last week. And last week, there was a Bitcoin conference. You can't make this up. You know, Bitcoin should have been pumping. Sometimes there's a pump into the conference, a little bit during the conference, and after there's a sell-off. But guess what? A lot of people complained that the Bitcoin conference was an altcoin shellfest and a stablecoin event. And hello, Dominic in Switzerland. Thank you for coming. But here you can see ETH beat Bitcoin by 2.97%. Sol beat it by 4.5%. XRP beat it by 4.3%. Even Cardano beat it. Sui went down for whatever reason. And in dollar terms, so here you see the other truth. Again, everything is sort of good in the hood. Some old names not doing too well, like Avalanche, XLM, Polkadot, Aptos, Near, Sui, Tron. But other stuff are good. Anyway, let's check in on the seasonality. Bitcoin is up 1% so far in the month of June. Not bad. I thought we could chop sideways for the first 2 weeks and the last 2 weeks be strong, but it looks like we're starting off strong out of the gate, which isn't bad. Don't expect things to kick off too fast, but I'm happy to be wrong on that one. Digital fund flows. Very important to check out where the money is going. And it's also positive, slightly positive. Remember, we had record flows over the previous, 6 weeks? But last week, we just saw 286 million come in. A paltry $300 million. However, the last 7 weeks, $11 billion. That's a truckload of cheddar, ladies and gentlemen. And the flows by asset, see where the actual money's going. Ethereum, we will be talking quite a bit about Ethereum today. Ethereum, massive $321.4 million. Something is up with Ethereum. And shout out to Mando. He wanted a public wager with me yesterday, which asset would outperform over the next 12 weeks. I backed Sol. He backed ETH. So we'll see who wins. And even if I do win, I will donate whatever to a charity of his liking. Anyway, but when you look at the breakdown, the flows here, big move into ETH, huge move. And that means over the last 6 weeks, I think they've had over $1 billion into Ethereum. And that is the strongest run for at least a year, as far as I recall. And XRP outflows, that's logical at last. 28.2 million. People are giving up the ghost on the XRP. Solana up 1.5 million. Sui 2 million. But the ETH number is really the one that catches the attention right now. Now, Tom Lee, let's get into the Bitcoin news first before we talk about alts and then stocks. A lot of really good stuff. Tom Lee had this beautiful, simple little quote, and I'm kind of mad I didn't think of it myself. He says, over 95% of Bitcoin has been mined, and over 95% of the planet doesn't own it. So as far as he's concerned, they're pretty darn good ratios, what people have versus not. So his thesis, he sees at least $150,000 Bitcoin this year. And then he said on the CNBS interview, maybe 200 or even 250. The guy is hella bullish. And by the way, this guy, I've been watching him for years. We went to the same business school, etc. He is very good at predicting when things go in a certain direction, like the S&P 500 or certain stocks. He's also a huge Tesla bull right now as well. Guess what? His two biggest granny bets are Bitcoin and Tesla. Weird, huh? Anyway. And yesterday on DCA, we mentioned something, and I know it causes some derangement, but we report the news that pertains to Bitcoin. So I hope this doesn't offend anybody, but Russia's biggest bank did deploy Bitcoin bonds. Bitcoin bonds, we've been talking about since last year. They are becoming very, very real, and investors can now access these instruments. I'm not sure exactly how, but these bonds are being processed in rubles. And so there's an alarm. Boom. Something just happened on my trading view. Let's see what it was. Whoa. Haha. Sol ETH. Woo. That triggered. Yeah. ETH is on the move. Super interesting. Big things happening with Ethereum. But yeah, I won't dwell too much. But the point is, the largest bank in Russia has lost bonds tied to Bitcoin. This is just the beginning, ladies and gentlemen. If the Russians are doing it, everybody else in the world should be doing it. Let's talk about Bitcoin season. We're at 20, still Bitcoin season, ladies and gentlemen. Not all season yet, despite the fact the last week was pretty good and the last month even better. Now, a big topic today is staking. Staking is back. Staking services are red hot, up 51.1% for the month. That includes all the big names that you know. And Ethereum, up 42.9% for the month. Remember, they got beaten down so bad, down to about 1,500. Now ETH is about 2,500. So it really is performing very well. And I think, what happened? Bitcoin, wonder, ETH 2,600 right now as we speak. Bitcoin just dropped $500. Not sure why. Anyway, keep on with the story. Top 50 performance over the last 30 days. You can see Bitcoin is only up 9.9% over the last 30 days. Sol 9.1%. But Hype, the big winner, up 79%. Pepe, 54%. And Aave, blast from the past, 52.1%. So things, and ETH is number 4, 41.8% for the last 30 days. ETH has not been on these charts in years. So this is really a time that maybe Mando is going to be right about his ETH pick. Let's get into some of the stuff that people are excited about. Some people believe ETH will absolutely smash $15,000 when something happens. This is crypto elites. Their target for Ethereum is $15,000. This reminds me very much of the last cycle where people were calling for $20,000 ETH and $40,000 ETH. Well, here we are back again. But I like to ground things in logic. Okay, ETH is old and it's slow, but yes, it is attracting money. Okay, And yes, it's been there a long time. And yes, it has the Lindy effect. And yes, they are the grandfather of creating smart contracts. All of this stuff I get, and it's great. What is different, though, is if ETH does go to $15,000, by my models and my calculations, that means the crypto market cap will go to $18 trillion, probably a lot higher, because ETH is not ready to handle the world. It's way too slow at 10 to 15 transactions per second. Even if they 10x that, it's still way too slow. Way too slow. A chain needs to be able to do 1 million TPS to be able to handle the planet. So is the crypto market cap going to 18 trillion? The answer is hell no, it's not. But it's nice to have that hopium, but please don't hold your breath, because that may never happen. Probably will never happen. But what is driving ETH? And that is probably this. There are a lot of staking rumors going around that BlackRock is going to get approval for ETH staking. And I always said from day one, the fact that somebody would buy an ETH ETF and not get the 3% staking returns is stupid. Who would do that? TradFi, maybe. But BlackRock is reportedly pressuring the SEC to approve an ETH staking ETF within the next 2 weeks. And if this happens, ETH could teleport to that $12,000. If this happens, it's great news for the space. I'm very happy for ETH and very supportive, because that means the Sol ETF will also have staking. Okay, massive. And we'll get into a little bit of, why don't we take a little bit of a look at what's happening across the different chains? Could be a good time. Let's look at revenue by chain in 2020. Ethereum did it all. 100% of application revenue. The others were crumbs, not even getting to 1%. Arbitrum 0, Binance 0, Base 0, Solana 0. Nothing. Okay, that was October 2020. Let's have a look at September 2023. Wow, something happened. ETH went to 56% of all revenue by chain. Others were grabbing a whole bunch. And then Base 9%, Binance 8%, Arbitrum 7% out of nowhere. So you add up ETH and the layer 2s, they pretty much owned everything. I don't know how many of the percentages are in layer 2s from ETH and the others, but basically call it 75% was Arbitrum, Base, and Ethereum. Remember that number, 56%. Fast forward to today, approximately 2 years later. Not even 2 years later, sorry. Solana is 57%. Solana is now more than ETH was 2 years ago. Ethereum is 16%, Binance 11%, Base 8%, and others 7%, and Arbitrum down to 2%. This is how, again, winner takes most. Every single time, winner takes most. It's the way of the universe, as I've been preaching here on this channel for years. Don't overthink it, ladies and gentlemen. So, what's also very interesting is, yes, Solana does 57%, call it 60% of everything on the internet. All of the transactions, 77% of all transactions, services all the users. And yet, it only trades at less than 30% of the market cap of Ethereum. So that's why I'm so excited. I want Ethereum to go to the moon, ladies and gentlemen, because if it does, over time, the market is a weighing machine and the cream will float to the top. I promise you that. And yes, everybody, I understand you're frustrated. Why is Solana price so low? Well, look at the distance from all-time high, okay, and compare it to other alts other than Bitcoin. All of them are getting slaughtered with very, very few exceptions. So bear that in mind. So that's the ETH story for today and how things have changed. Let's get into stocks real quick. Stock Fear and Greed, 56. We will be talking about proxies today quite a bit because they are huge. But remember how dark it was in March and April? Everybody thought the world was ending. The perma bears came out and said, we're going to see the worst financial catastrophe since 1987. And who on videos every day said, no, these tariffs are actually a good thing and they're going to help a lot of stuff and make the world a better place. And the market will recover. However, I was wrong. The market's recovered a lot faster than I expected. I thought we'd have like 3 or 6 months of maybe a little down action, but it came back the next month and snapped right back. I did say, though, it would be a V-shaped recovery because the speed at which the market falls typically reflects the speed at which it gains things back again. But we just had the best May in 36 years in the S&P 500. The best May. But the most important thing about the best May in 35 years is guess what? Guess what? If seasonality works, all right, if May gains over 5%, it means stocks gain an average of 20% for the remainder of the year. Okay? I want that to be very clear. That means we have a lot more ups in stocks to go if history repeats. We're not sure. Things can be different sometimes this time. But anyway, a very good omen too. No, the world's not going to end. Perma bears will go back into their caves for the next big fear-mongering session, whenever they may get that. Let's look at the stocks the last 30 days. Amazon up 7%. NVIDIA, huge rebound there too, up 24%. Microsoft 7.35%. Tesla fell a little bit today, but still up 23% for the last 30 days. Meta 14%, Google 2%. Berkshire down 7%. That melting ice cube is going to eat into the bag. So Warren, if you're listening, before you retire in August, buy a big bag of Bitcoin and a big bag of Tesla, and you will retire a hero. I promise you. Take the risk. I know it's nice to go out on top, but take a little risk. Deploy some of that cash. And foreigners are flooding back into U.S. stocks. There was a dip there for, again, back in March. Everybody's like, oh, these Americans are terrible with their tariffs. I'm not buying their stocks. Well, guess what? They came back in April. And that was quick. Anyway, and more to come too. That's where the alpha is. And MicroStrategy come out with yet another preferred flavor stock. They have the Stark, and I call the Strife. Now they just have the Stirred, which is the Stride. I love the names. I wonder, I'm going to go actually play later and find out how many more acronyms there are with STR. STRX, Strix. That could be nice. That'll be my next one. Straw. Anyway, I'm off on a tangent here. But they'll be issuing a truckload more of these shares that will pay another 10% dividend. There are a few nuances between this new Stride and Strife and STRK. I shared a document on that on Patreon earlier today, so check that out. There could be a time when these things are interesting, but we're waiting for that time. Again, per the previous thing I just showed you, the market is still looking good for the year end. 10% isn't enough to get me out of bed just yet. Unless, of course, I feel the world is going to crash down, then maybe, but we're not there. Now, Metaplanet buys another 1,088 Bitcoin. You'll see here, they now hold 8888 Bitcoin. When you see these numbers, they are not by chance, but in Asian culture, people believe 8 is good luck, particularly in Chinese culture. I didn't know it also existed in Japanese culture. If anybody is from Japan and they know that 8 is also a good luck number in Japan, let me know. But that's why they chose that number. Again, another $1 billion worth socked away, and that's more than maybe 20 million retail investors would buy in a couple of months. So it is huge. These treasuries are stacking like wildfire. And yet another one from the Bitcoin historian. I never even heard of this company. It looks like some Asian type of firm. And when I first saw it, I said, Logitech, the company that used to make mice and stuff and keyboards. But it's Retar Logtech proposed to raise $1.5 billion to buy Bitcoin for the treasury. Again, it's relentless. It's not even every day anymore. It's multiple every single day. The treasuries are absolutely on fire. And these companies, when I look at the financials for Retar, it's not hot. So the big theme right now is for companies that are struggling to pump their stock, they adopt a Bitcoin strategy. Why not? Let's go. Until, of course, I hope the tide doesn't go out. But if there's enough sustained buying, there will be no tide going out. And that's also that 20% chance of that happening too, which I've spoken of for years now. And Robinhood acquires Bitstamp. Robinhood is a force to be reckoned with. I find it to be a very interesting application. They just completed the acquisition of Bitstamp. Bitstamp is the OG kind of centralized exchange from way back in the day. And they bought them for $200 million. And they've got 50 crypto licenses across the world. And this will now enable Robinhood to do a lot of very exotic stuff with Bitcoin. Crypto as a service, maybe lending. who knows what. It's going to be great for Robinhood, and these guys are on the cutting edge, and all the others kind of follow what they do. And Robinhood stock is up 72% this year. Also, red hot. Now, speaking of stocks and red hotness and crypto, Circle had to up their valuation to 6.7 billion. There is huge amount of demand for this. And last week I reported Larry Fink said he's going to buy 10% of the Circle IPO. I think when that happened, the TradFi guy's like, well, if Larry's in, put me down for 10% myself. Boom, value goes up. And I am very happy, very happy. This is not falling into the hands of a Ripple or a Coinbase. I want them to be independent and strong. So shout out to Jeremy Allaire and Circle, and I wish them a good IPO. Now, holy poop, what happened? Okay, Atlanta Fed is now projecting Q2 GDP will be a massive 4.6% expansion. Again, a month ago, the sky was falling. The world is going to end. All of a sudden, things are bonkers. Again, that's how fast risk happens out there and how fickle people can be, from death and destruction to, wow, one of the biggest expansions in the history of the country. Anyhow, we'll see how this pans out. Either way, it's good for the markets. We just need the Fed to cut rates. And the Fed did say something very interesting yesterday in JP's presentation. And that was they would reanalyze how they measure stuff, because they now know that the way they measure things is off. They're always late and always wrong. Pretty bad combination. Anywho, finishing with meme du jour. So you're telling me this IMF loan will help my economy? As we know, IMF is very good at destroying countries. But I thought that was quite appropriate and quite funny for today, and very cute little picture. And don't forget, all these videos are turned into Substacks. And I hope you like the content. Sorry about the streaming challenge at the beginning, but we made it happen. I've got to figure out what's wrong with StreamYard, because this happened across multiple PCs today where things are not loading. And then on, what was it? Was it another video we did last week? Or DCA last Monday, not yesterday, the week ago. Again, StreamYard crapped out. I was showing up, but they weren't. Anyway, thank you all for, and pardon my dust and technical challenges, but live is always fun anyway. You get the real person, TD Tesla, and the real emotion, and the real alpha, Sean D, K8, and everybody else from all over the world. Thank you for coming. Hope you enjoy the show. Take care and good night. See you tomorrow.